Hey everybody, it's me, Austin. So as you guys know, I'm 27 years old and I'll be 28 in the fall, meaning that a decade ago I would have been a junior in high school, actually at this moment, pretty much wrapping up my junior year. And that also means that most of my former high school career is either a decade-year old or more. So having been through almost 10 years of life since graduating high school, I figured it was really fitting to walk down memory lane and kind of talk about my high school experience in front of a camera, probably for the first time ever. Because I also realized that I don't really think about high school too much. Because all of this was brought up when on Tuesday morning before I left for work, I was scrolling through a social media and saw a notification for an invitation to join a group. And the group's name was the name of my high school, followed by class of 2015, 2025 10-year reunion. So I guess it's like the official group for contact and figuring and planning of all that. So it made me realize, wow, I'm pretty old. I'm aging pretty quick. And life really does come at you fast. And it's like the older you get, the faster time feels. So that was on Tuesday morning. I had inspiration from that incident to actually go ahead and make this video. But the thing is, that's a lot of years that I have to recall that I haven't really thought about in a pretty long time. So I needed to give myself a few days to kind of stew, and think about those years. And, here it goes. So basically, to sum it up all around, whether it was at school or at home, my high school years were not a fun time for the most part. Now, don't get me wrong, I had friends when I was in high school, and I had fun times with those friends during the times that we would have also been going to high school. But not necessarily during high school hours. But the true beginning of high school for me wasn't so bad. I actually had kind of been involved with the high school a lot earlier than most freshmen because I was an incoming freshman for the marching band program, and you essentially start dedicating your time pretty quickly on into your 8th grade year. So I was out doing that for months, and also I was kind of on a thin line because I had to attend the summer school course in between 8th grade and freshman year because I made a really bad decision when I was 14 and decided I didn't feel like doing schoolwork, and forged my report cards for an entire year, which gave me probably one of the lowest GPAs in my entire class, to the point where I was pretty much on sudden death. If I didn't pass this remedial program, I was going to have to repeat the 8th grade. And as a kid growing up in the American public school system, that is pretty much like social suicide. So I just couldn't allow that to happen, and a lot was at stake. So at the conclusion of this program, we had to give a presentation to who would be our assistant principal, as well as a specific study hall that was designed for kids that were in this class during the summer, where there would be upperclassmen tutors available to you. And it was the director of that study hall as well as my mom. And I was so anxious that I was going to choke up and fail that I pretty much just broke down and started crying in front of everyone. But I muscled through the presentation. Somehow I managed to pass that and go further into my education. I don't remember a whole lot from freshman year. I think I blacked a lot of it out because it's really embarrassing. For a while, it was really embarrassing for me to look back and see how I let people just like walk all over me or take advantage of me or any other of things because I just wanted to feel accepted that bad. But at the end of the day, how could you feel expected? But at the end of the day, how could you feel accepted when you're not respected? You know, there was a time in my freshman year, it seemed like there was like 3 circles of freshmen. During a time in my freshman year, there was like a point where it seemed like 3 circles of upperclassmen were like really interested in me, like joining their friend circle. 2 were formed of band upperclassmen. 1 was like the percussion section, and the other was like the horn section. So status quo would dictate that I would have like gotten in with the horn players, but I think I enjoyed the percussionists more. Just more counterculture and stuff, more of the stuff I was into. But I ended up getting in with the worst crowd that wasn't necessarily involved with pretty much anything to do with the school other than showing up. And that was probably where most of the psychoactive substances that I took my freshman year came from. I was doing good for a while, but I quickly went on this decline, probably starting in the fall. I remember my first day of freshman year pretty vividly, at least that morning. I can't really say I remember the rest, but I do remember the afternoon being home and what that was like as well. The morning, I remember I walked in. I remember having a sense of euphoria and anticipation and general eagerness to get started because I did realize at the time I had been afforded like a second chance and a clean slate. And, you know, it was high school. It was like the end all be all at the time in your life when you have to get the good GPA for the college admissions and so on and so forth. And the proposition of that being presented to me, neutral on a clean slate, was very enticing. And I really wanted to excel until I started falling in with this crowd, and I couldn't really dedicate my time to my classwork anymore. I remember one time, which would lead to my demise, my freshman year. It was right before Christmas break, so it was like December 2011, and I was probably almost 2 months into being 15 years old. I remember being in my freshman year biology class, and one of the kids in that group was really aggressive with me about obtaining my money, because the original plan was I was actually going to buy some, like probably like an eighth off of one of those percussionists upperclassmen, but this guy was like, that's a ripoff. Um, Pay me this money and I'll get you these pills. And I had kind of been experimenting with prescription painkillers. I didn't get physically addicted, but I definitely was flirting on a pretty dangerous line. Like, I feel like there could have been like a catalytic event that could have caused me to become a full-blown opiate addict before I even hit 21, 18. But I was getting really ballsy, and that was probably the first time that my interest and infatuation of even just the boring rudimentary chemistry of things such as psychoactive compounds came about. I still study this stuff quite frequently. I just think back then I was really young and immature. I didn't approach it with the humbleness and respect that it truly does deserve. And I paid a price for it, I essentially, from my understanding, got snitched out. It caused a bunch of other people to meet the same fate as I did, getting arrested, because they caught me while I was under the influence at the high school of this substance. They decided to send me to the ER instead of sending me to juvenile hall. And perhaps because of certain socio-political factors, maybe I had a much nicer preferential treatment. But they ended up never arresting me, and I pretty much just went home. And, I'm not going to say I may as well have been in jail, but it did feel like a cyclical jail being at home, because the school system had put me on this interim suspension period until further notice. Then, like 2 months after the incident, they summoned me to a hearing about what to do with me, whether to like expel me outright or allow me to continue my schooling. So basically a month, I believe, after that hearing, I was given a piece of mail that basically told me I was expelled and could not return to the school grounds or any other campus that belongs to that district until June 2012, under penalty of prosecution, essentially. I was in that scene right around the end of the painkiller and heroin heyday, and right before the fentanyl epidemic had broken out. So I guess in retrospect, I'm glad that I got caught when I did, because I could have been dead if I never gotten caught. Whether it would have been yesterday or 12 years ago. But the expulsion sucked. I think the first month was alright, but then I started freaking myself out because I had nothing to do. And I was at home every day, and I lived right by Lake Michigan, so it was winter and everything was snowed in, and I was getting cabin fever really bad. And I remember I started hallucinating like bugs on the wall, bugs on the floor, objects that weren't there. And then I started scaring myself with all these like alien conspiracy theories that I don't believe in anymore. But they're essentially saying these aliens are on this covert infiltration agenda of the human race, and they have all these secret societies and a global network and some subterranean level underneath the crust of the earth, you know. And it genuinely freaked me out. And I started losing a lot of sleep. Everything got thrown out of whack. And I remember my hallucinations got a lot more intense. And instead of hallucinating tiny bugs in places that they weren't, or other small creatures that had no basis in reality, I started hallucinating these approximately 2 to 3 foot tall, gray to beige beings whose head and facial features kind of looked like a mix between a classic depiction of a gray alien and a elf. And it scared me a lot. I saw this a few times, and it was always in my peripheral vision. And if you guys remember the old spot I used to do videos in way back in the original heyday of this account, that was my old bedroom, the green room, the room that looks like someone cut open Shrek and his stomach contents were just splattered on the walls or something, I don't know. But my closets in that room had sliding mirror doors, so I could see everything out of the corner of my eye because of the positioning of my computer desk and chair. So I could see the desk I was at, my computer, me sitting atop of the chair, and a good distance behind the chair. And the one time that did it for me was, it was probably about 2:30 in the morning one night, and I was probably just watching conspiracy content as per usual and scaring the crap out of myself. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw another one of these beings, but this time it was grabbing at the rear of the chair. So I quickly got up and I did like a donkey kick and kicked the chair as hard as I could to try to knock it over, right? And I turn around really quick and get my fists up because, well, I'm not going to go out without a fight. And there was nothing there, and it just scared the living crap out of me. So I ran upstairs and I slept up in the living room. And I pretty much slept there for the next 6 months. Like, I wouldn't even go into my bedroom at all, except to grab clothes really briefly. It was really bizarre. And, this fear continued for a long time. It pretty much caused me to devolve into a crazy person. There's actually this chick I was talking to at the time, and I must have sounded like I was spitting complete gibberish. And basically, from word of mouth, I heard that on that night she said, "Wow, he's really going crazy." Yeah, we ended up having like an acrimonious end to our situationship, or whatever you want to call it. I was actually butthurt about that for a long time. I remember, like, it was like the first time I felt like abandoned by someone. I was like feeling like I was burning in hell, and like the one person I felt comfortable talking to at the time was not there, but probably deservedly so, because I was kind of a little shit back in the day. But definitely felt like I was going through a catastrophic collapse of something back in the day, for sure. Other than that, I think I started to reach a baseline again going into my sophomore year, but that summer previous, I was allowed to go back into the school grounds and start marching band again, and it was all good. And I developed a crush on somebody who had just joined my section in marching band. And it was like the first L I ever took in love, I think. It was like my first crush I ever actually like admitted that I had a crush on and asked out. And my first time was a little rough. I got rejected. I was really butthurt about that. Um, you know, I didn't give up for a while, but eventually I kept hurting myself so bad in that dynamic that I had to just stop talking to that person. And then they ended up saying some really cross things about me later on in life, so I don't really have any contact with that individual anymore. But I had a lot of fun that season, and then I got really out of hand. I figured out I had a knack for making people laugh. So I decided to do something really inappropriate and post a Facebook video to a Facebook group for my marching band section, which was basically a freestyle rap diss on this kid that was in our section. Then his dad saw it and freaked out. And, I understand definitely now that that was totally unacceptable when I was younger. But, I'm thinking if, like, someone's kid did this to me, I feel like my parents would have just had a conversation in private with the parent. But this person's parent decided it was fitting to, like, go to the high school, cause a bunch of ruckus, try to remove me from marching band, put the school on blast, try to sue the school. And then in addition to that, they had their buddy, who is a columnist for one of the local papers, write a newspaper article about me, which obviously they couldn't name me at the time because I was a minor, but really went in on me, and it was brutally humbling. Some quotes were like, laughable wannabe gangster accent, and looking half-baked, which I wasn't, but everybody always said I looked high back in the day. So yeah, it just caused a huge ruckus, and for like a quarter of my sophomore year, I was like pretty much a social pariah. And then the dad went into it further because the newspaper article about me sparked a huge debate and sparked more hits than in any recent piece by that author. So the father doubled down, and basically the comment section was just an all-out battle between people saying like he's just a kid, like he's making a mistake, like go easy on him, this is overkill, and people that were pretty much as pissed off as the dad, and said some of the most craziest things ever about a 15-year-old that I think I could have ever imagined reading. Anyways, the father made a ruckus in that comment thread and was addressing people that were kind of like a little bit on my side, like, hey, you made like a dumb mess up, but like this is a little ridiculous and overkill, by comparing me to the people who perpetrated Columbine, because they also made videos. So the student body then decided to formulate a rumor that I was going to essentially pull a Columbine at my local high school as a minor with no access to firearms that were kept under lock and key in my house, of an apparent desire of mine that I never even knew I had. And to make matter worse, that was the same year that the infamous Sandy Hook situation happened. And in its wake, And my home area of where I lived at the time, there was this ring of people that made these threats, essentially promising to do the same thing, as is the case with Sandy Hook, to multiple schools and multiple school districts across the region I lived in at the time. I don't live in the same area anymore, but so I'm sure people were looking at me, but I started kind of my long-term redemption arc of salvaging whatever respect I could get, starting like the second half of my sophomore year. I pretty much got comments like asking like if I was the rap guy up until the beginning of my senior year, probably though, and that always got annoying. But I started having a lot of fun, you know. I didn't. I think I was realizing the difference between reckless rebellion and constructive rebellion. So I think I shifted more of my focus into making music and such. Rap was a big thing for me back then. I did like record some like punk rock type of stuff, but I didn't really get into recording rock songs until like my early 20s. Definitely rap was a mainstay for me in high school though. Some metal and some rock as well. I had a good friend group for what it was at the time. I feel like most of the people in it were pretty well-rounded individuals. I'm not gonna say like anybody was mentally off, because that's not for me to say, but I'll definitely say that that friend group had toxic dynamics in it that were pretty much being perpetrated by one individual. But nobody talks to that individual anymore, so it's not really a big deal anymore. But it was marked, you know, that person was kind of manipulative, and you pretty much had to always demonstrate your undying loyalty to them. It was, looking back, it was like a chore to be friends with them. And I think they were just somebody that was around, willing to talk to me. And, you know, I was open-minded and always welcoming of people, and I feel like that got taken advantage of in retrospect. Still had good times with the motherfucker, but, you know, fuck him. But there was this one night we had crashed and had like one last hurrah before like junior year started, and we ended up drinking a little bit of tequila, getting tipsy, walking around the town we grew up in at 3 a.m., getting in trouble with the police. Well, not really. Like, I think there have been reports of us and they were looking for us, but we were able to hide from them. I saw one looking at the end of the street with a searchlight, and me and the guy I was with, we cut it across the yard, and I hid in a raspberry bush for what must have been like an hour to 90 minutes before the coast was clear again, and I dashed down the street in my bare feet, pretty much, to make like a 2-mile journey back to the house that we were staying at. It was a crazy time. Junior year was alright. That friend I was talking about that was kind of like a chore to be around ended up moving to be with his father in a different state. And, you know, looking back, I'm kind of glad that happened, because we had a class together in the morning on certain days. And, you know, I thought we were friends, but he was treating me like a dick like he used to when we were younger. And I kind of realized I just liked him at a distance most of the time. Yeah, I mean, that's probably rough to say, but I'm just an honest person. What can I say? Junior year was a pretty quiet year for me overall. I had no freestyle raps or no more arrests on my record. I had a lot of drama in the band department. It was actually my last year in band because of this. Essentially what had happened was I think I got on the bad side of the directors of the music program because of the shenanigans I pulled back to back, which is understandable. But instead of them just saying something to me, they did it in a very passive way, which pretty much just let me know to fuck off. And what I mean is, like, there was one time during marching band camp in between sophomore and junior year, and one of the directors that I used to really like when I was younger, was telling the middle voices but not the mellophones to play. But then half my section raised their horns, and I told them, wait, put your horns down. They said not for us not to play. And then the conductor stops, looks at us, and he says, why aren't you guys playing? And me and the guy that heard him say, well, you just told us not to play. And then the conductor goes, oh, don't you know the new rule? Don't listen to Austin. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I was so fucking mad. I was almost in tears. Like, of course I couldn't cry in front of everyone, but I always felt like that was probably the most uncalled for thing that a teacher has ever done to me. And for whatever it was, a misunderstanding on perhaps our part, that maybe two people heard the same thing, misheard the same thing, or the fact that my director actually didn't say the right thing he meant to say. But either way, it was pretty evident that I was going to be a target that year. Even after having spent half a year like trying to make up for things, I was the only person in that section from my freshman year, and you would think that since I was like the only original person from day one, they'd be like, it's your section, which I ended up just saying, you know, whatever, we're all upperclassmen, we'll just kind of like be equals. Well, one of the other guys they got to start playing the instrument I had played since freshman year, they pretty much started talking to him as if he were the section leader. But this guy didn't like that because he thought I was the section leader, but I didn't like that he thought I was the section leader because I just wanted us to all be equals. I remember one time in class, one of the directors had said, basically like called this guy out by name, and they're like, you gotta get this is your section, you gotta get it up to speed. And the guy was like, this isn't my section, I'm not the section lead for this section. And they completely, it like fell on deaf ears, and they just continued. And then later on in just normal band, which we would do in like the spring months and the like late winter months, I basically was stripped of being first chair. I was denied 2 solos, and I truly thought that I was the better player. And it just became apparent that they were just pretty much taking their aggression out on me without taking their aggression out on me. Bending just enough so that they couldn't get in trouble. So I saw the game and I got tired of it, so I didn't sign up for band my senior year. And I had already made up my mind since like sophomore year anyway that I would probably quit after junior year. And I just added an additional foreign language onto my schedule. And when my band director found that out, he decided to give me a D in his class. Thankfully, I wasn't up for like an honors diploma or something, because that would have totally fucked me. I think that guy had like some sort of health issue anyway, because he got really sick and recovered, but I don't think his memory was ever the same. Because I bumped into him again when I was like 21 or 22 years old, and we had a conversation, but he couldn't remember like my name or like the instrument I played, which was weird because he could remember me for like a year or two after that, so it was weird. But I haven't really seen the guy since at all. My senior year, I had a lot of time on my hands, and the summer before my senior year, which will be 10 years ago in July, I actually posted my first video under my YouTube, this YouTube account. Whoa. And essentially, with that being said, it's been a pretty cool ride. But that's when I really decided I wanted to really try my hand at content creation. Perhaps I'll upload some archive footage, but there was a point in high school I ran a 2-man backyard wrestling promotion on a trampoline and had a separate YouTube account in which we would post those episodes. So that was one of the projects that kept me busy in like the warmer months. But I think now that I wasn't in classical disciplines of music, I didn't really have anything to practice. And truth be told, I kind of stopped playing my French horn or my trumpet a lot, and I started picking up guitar and bass. And I got really into that because I always wanted to learn how to play those instruments more proficiently. In fact, I didn't even really feel like I was a proficient guitar player until like the summer of 2022. So it does take a while and some dedication. I don't remember my first day of senior year all too well. I'm just drawing a blank on it, to be honest with you. I don't even think I remember my last day even, but I do remember the day I graduated. But I'll get into that soon. That winter I had my first bout with celiac disease that I wasn't aware was celiac disease. It was stripping vitamin D from my body like crazy, so I pretty much slept for an entire winter. I didn't start feeling somewhat better until like that April. Other than that, not a whole lot happened besides making videos. But the night of my graduation, I remember my childhood best friend came over. I remember we had like a little photo shoot with our suit and ties on my old deck at my childhood home. And there's also a photo of us out there somewhere with us in our cap and gowns right after graduating. And actually, he's going to be the cameraman for some of the projects that are coming down the line. So it's really nice that things are coming full circle, you know. But as far as the rest of high school, I had to actually do a credit recovery course the summer after senior year. I think the teacher even slipped me by just to get me through the system. I had to retake this algebra credit, and I sucked at math at the time, and I needed it to actually get my diploma. And the stipulation was you had to pass with at least a B minus, and I couldn't get past a C with it, and I was getting frustrated, and time was ticking. I really had to get this done and get to South Carolina to go on vacation. So I got a C, and I think the dude just passed me through. So I ended up getting my diploma under false pretenses, and I went to South Carolina that summer. Went to school for botany that fall and dropped out, and pretty much had like a gap year and a half, and then that's kind of where most of my memory starts picking up a little better. Anyways, yeah, it was just really interesting to think about high school. I haven't done it in a while, and I wanted to do it in a way where I could just like share my life experience with you guys as always. And in conclusion, I actually do think I'm gonna go to my 10-year reunion. I always thought I was gonna be one of those people that was like, screw my old high school, I don't like anybody there. But it would be interesting to show people what I've become and see what other people have become. And hey, if I don't like it, I don't have to go in 10 more years. So that's about all. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye.